welcome to the Bullcast Podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me is Court Winsett.
Hello, Katie.
And Nicole Ellis.
What's up?
Katie, where's Cameron?
I don't know. He left us.
Cameron could not be here today, but he gave his blessing for us to go ahead and record without him. So we are going to do just that. And it gives us a great opportunity to bring in Nicole to talk about a topic that she is expert on. But before you turn off your podcast, this is not another Taylor Swift episode. We're actually going to be talking about junior college today. And Nicole has some expertise in that area. The pros and cons of community college.
Yeah. So we've done episodes before about talking about college. I think several episodes we have sprinkled in there the fact that college is very different than it used to be. Obviously, I thought that when COVID hit and everything went online that college would get cheaper. No. You can get degrees at night, online, in person. There's so many different options. But we've also stressed about education, that not everyone has to go to a 4-year university. Not everyone has to go to a community college. Some people can go to trade schools, but there's so many different things. You've got to figure out what fits you and what's best. Nicole wanted us to really dive deeper into community college and kind of the pros and cons of that.
Decided to make this outline because I have listened to every episode. I'm just going to toot my own horn and notice that this hasn't been brought up, and it's very much a big thing, especially when I was in high school back almost 10 years ago. I'm going to age myself with that one.
She's going to age herself.
Well, yeah.
My 10-year reunion is next year.
Oh, Lord.
I will just point out that I think, Nicole, you come up with topics based on the list that you get to make.
That's not necessarily true. I have made some topic outlines, and I have no idea where the list is going to go, and I just go with it.
You just feel it. You just,
It's in my bones.
Indeed. Okay.
Okay, so education, super, super important. And so let's get into your list you put together, Nicole. TV shows and movies set in community college.
Indeed. And there's an obvious one that's just going to go right up front. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. What is it?
It's Community,
Yes.
a television show with Joel McHale. It's a comedy about a group of students at Greendale Community College, which is fictional, set in Colorado. It follows the students as they navigate their classes, relationships, and personal life. I have personally never seen this show.
You've never seen Community?
I know.
Me either.
It's got Donald Glover in it, too, doesn't it?
It does. It's got Donald
love him.
Glover. He's amazing. This is an underrated show, people. This is a good one. It's actually one that I watched almost all the way through. I did not finish after Donald Glover left. I watched for another season or two, but then the last season I ended up not.
Yeah. Side note, Donald Glover is amazing in Atlanta, if you've...
Yes, he is.
It's
Atlanta
hilarious.
is a good show. But there's no community college in Atlanta. I mean, they're in the city Atlanta, there are probably several community colleges, but in the TV show, it's not.
There's
something
no community college.
But Community, they do focus on the community college, and it is hilarious.
Hence the name Community.
Court, take the next one.
Okay, the next one is Larry Crown. Never seen it, don't want to. But it's a comedy movie about a middle-aged man who enrolls in community college after being laid off from his job. It, of course, does star Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts.
Love them.
The only thing that I really remember about this movie is in the trailer for the movie, I'm fairly certain that there's a scene of Tom Hanks riding on a scooter with Julia Roberts on the back of it. And that's all I can really tell you that Larry Crown is about, is they ride around on a scooter.
That sounds like a good life, just riding around on a scooter with Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts.
I mean, I'd be game.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one on this list is Accepted. It's a comedy movie about a high school student who is rejected from every college he applies to. He decides to create his own college and enroll himself and his friends. This is Justin Long, Jonah Hill. This kind of reminds me of a movie probably, Nicole, you've never seen. But, Court, do you remember the movie Camp Nowhere?
I do not remember the movie Camp Nowhere, but I remember us discussing the movie Camp Nowhere the last time Accepted came up on one of our lists.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, they create this college and it's trying to like fit everybody's different unique personalities and what they wanted. So Camp Nowhere is kind of similar. Then they make one camp, and then when the parents show up, it's like one section is like fat camp and the other one's theater camp and another one's nerd camp, and like And that's not politically correct, but that's what they say in the movie. Okay, I'm just quoting what's in the movie.
Who's in this movie?
Oh,
We keep jumping off onto other topics.
I'm sorry.
No, but it has Doc from Back to the Future.
Christopher Lloyd is the name.
Yes, thank you. I was like, I'm looking at him in my mind. Yeah, Christopher Lloyd actually plays the counselor that they hired, which was just kind of like a guy looking to make some extra money.
I'll have to add it to my list.
Yep.
All right, the next one on the list is 22 Jump Street. It's actually a sequel to 21 Jump Street that's set in high school. It follows two undercover cops who are sent to pose as high school students in order to investigate a drug ring. That's 21 Jump Street. 22 is based on a little community college. They go undercover again and have to do, I think it's a drug bust.
And this is Channing Tatum
and Jonah Hill.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
Jonah Hill keeps doing community college movies.
He has a theme going.
Okay, so next on the list is Night School. Night School is a comedy movie about a group of adults who go back to community college to get their GEDs. The movie stars Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish. I have not seen this movie.
I think it's a newer one.
Idea. Yeah.
Pretty new.
Okay.
Okay, well, now we got Old School. Great movie. While it's not exclusively set in a community college, the movie features a group of middle-aged men who start a fraternity at a local college. And so I think kind of the message is you're never too old for college. This is a great movie. Will Ferrell. I mean, there's just a stellar cast in this whole thing.
All right, last on the list is Last Chance U, which is actually a documentary television show. It's set in a small town called Scuba, Mississippi, at East Mississippi Community College.
Scuba.
Yes.
Scuba.
I think the first two seasons are, and it's about the players that strive to overcome personal challenges and pursue their dream of playing D1 football, which D1 is like SEC, Alabama, ACC, teams like that. Famous players that went to East Mississippi. If my Ole Miss fans are listening, Bo Wallace, he started there, or he transferred from, I think, a bigger school to East Mississippi. Chad Kelly, he went to East Mississippi Community College. It's a really fascinating show because Scuba is tiny. It's like they'll get all these players from around the country who have done something bad or messed up, like we all have little blunders once in a while, and they'll transfer to this small community college to try to get their lives back together and end up going somewhere big because they're that talented.
Okay, so did I miss you saying that this is actually a reality series? Is that?
It's a documentary.
It's a documentary.
So it's based on real players.
Interesting.
Fun fact, I think East Mississippi has won the most Juco national championships ever. That's the thing. When I was in college, they just won and nobody could beat them. Talking 50-0. They just blow their opponents out of the water. But I believe in season 2, they got in a huge brawl with another team, which forced them, even the coach got involved. They were throwing trash cans on the sideline. They got expelled from playing in the championship game, which meant my school, I graduated from Northwest, got to go to the championship game, the national championship game, and won. This is not what I meant when I said I wanted my team to win the national championship. Hotty toddy. But I'll take it. I got to see my school win a national championship.
There you go.
So
You got it.
That's cool.
my little wins.
You've said it a couple times now, but I guess I haven't picked them on. Juco?
Junior college, yeah. That's just a little acronym.
Look at that jargon.
JUCO is what the sportscasters normally call it. Junior college, yeah.
So you went to junior college.
I did. I went to Northwest Community College. The main campus is in Senatobia. However, I went to the campus in South Haven. The one in Senatobia is a full-on campus. There's dorm rooms, and it's pretty nice. But I got to stay home and go to South Haven because it's just in one big building. It was easy to go to. It was an easy transition for me, at least.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Your decision and
What made you decide that JUCO was the way for you to go and so forth?
So I graduated from Center Hill High School in 2014 in DeSoto County, which is in Mississippi. And they make every senior apply to Northwest. It doesn't matter if you're planning to go there, if you've already decided to go to another college. They make you apply because you never know. Things happen all the time. You could have a family sickness or you just change your mind last minute. And that's kind of what happened to me. I wanted to go to Ole Miss, but I knew I was not going to make it. If I went there first, I had some extreme anxiety. I was very shy. It's not my kind of crowd, really. So I was just I'm going to go to Northwest and just get my basic classes out of the way. And pretty much all their scholarships pay for the whole tuition.
Oh, wow.
So it's basically I went on a free ride for the time that I was there. And it just made the most sense to me because, those first 2 years of your classes are pretty basic. You can get them anywhere. And it was a lot cheaper. I didn't really want to take out a lot of student loans because that's what I was going to have to do. So decided to go to Northwest, end up graduating with my associates before transferring to Ole Miss. which is also in that building. And that's another thing I can go off of, is that they have a little program.
Something that I want to dive back into is you touched on something that we all know about. Your first couple of years of college is your basic classes. It's your core classes. And so, okay, it's kind of the whole keeping up with the Joneses. Okay, cool. Yeah, you say you went to Alabama or you went to Ole Miss or Harvard or wherever it is to get your schooling. Great. That's awesome. But you made a decision that you knew who you are, your comfort zone, but also fit your pocket.
Yeah.
Because there is no point, and I've heard of this before, where people, especially if they can get those scholarships, they can do that. Why not get those classes pretty much taken care of for free? You're going to still get a great education. You're going to get those knocked out because a lot of those are classes that don't even apply to what you're really going to school for. It's just kind of like, hey, you got to get your basic reading, writing, arithmetic, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and then if you, decide to drop out eventually, you haven't wasted a ton of money at a four-year university. I mean, a lot of the kids that I went to high school with, I'm pretty sure most of them didn't make it past a year or two.
Yeah, they drop out.
Well, not all of them. I don't want to say like I went to bad high school. I didn't. But yeah, it's a lot cheaper to do it that way.
I mean, it's a great way. If you have a kid that, or you yourself, you're not really sure if you're fully committed. You don't really know what you want to do. It's a nice way to kind of put your foot in the water that isn't as much of a financial commitment, but you're still going to get a great education. And then like you had your feeder path of like, I got this taken care of here. You kind of had that time to grow up too, because you were going straight from high school where, you're with mom and dad and you've got the structure of here's your classes to now a little bit of freedom that it's, there's not going to be a teacher that's like, hey, the bell just rang. Why are you not in this class? They don't. I mean, I'm not saying teachers don't care, but it is a different world out there.
Yeah, you're in charge of yourself.
Yeah. And so you got to kind of see if you can cut it. And so there is nothing at all wrong with it. I think that that's been a disservice that people have done of, oh, I got my associate's degree, or I got my degree, or I got my master's, or whatever. And then our instant next question is, where? Yes, I guess it's like I became a doctor and went to school at Harvard versus I became a doctor and went to Boondock Saints, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. At the end of the day, what are you? You're a doctor.
Yeah.
Like, does it really matter? Now, the people who are real, like, stuck to their alma mater, stuff like that, yeah, it makes a difference. But whether you do night school, community college, whatever it is, you've put in the discipline, you've been in the time to get this degree, to get this work done, and you should be proud of it. And it shouldn't be diluted because you didn't go to a well-known school or you didn't go to what someone thinks is like prestigious. I don't know.
I'm not looking at you because I think you're crazy or anything. I was just listening to you. But the only thing that I would say to sort of counter your point is not really a counter to your point so much as it is just, I think it really does depend on what it is you want to accomplish. And if you're strictly looking for the training and the education that you're going to get from somewhere like that, then it doesn't matter where you get that. But on the other hand, for instance, the first thing that jumped into my head when you were talking about does it really matter where you got your degree is in law school, obviously. Becoming a professor at any law school in the country, there is a high premium placed on where you graduated. If you want to be a professor at a law school, then if you graduated from, like, for instance, I graduated from a local law school. If you graduated from a local law school like University of Memphis, Cecil C. Humphreys School of Law versus Harvard, they're going to give a person that graduated from Harvard almost 100% more of a look than they're going to give me graduating from University of Memphis. I'm never going to make it onto the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter how accomplished my legal career is. They just are not going to have somebody from the University of Memphis Law School on the Supreme Court. They're looking for people that graduated from who do we have on the court? Like, yeah, right now it's Harvard, Yale, Stanford. Those are the justices on the Supreme Court right now. So that does matter. But if you're looking to actually do something, if you're looking to actually, not just build a resume, but you're actually looking to learn skills and gather the information that you'll need to be able to do a job after you graduate, then it shouldn't and probably doesn't matter where you got that education. And when you combine that with the fact that multiple states in the country now are offering free community college education.
Tennessee being one of them.
Yeah. 20 states in the nation that are offering tuition-free community college right now. community college, even if you had to pay for it, you're talking about what, a difference of in-state, I guess it would be in-state tuition, $3,700 per year of in-state tuition versus an average of $10,300 per year for a 4-year university. So the cost is just significantly lower. And if the education that you're getting is comparable, then why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you try and avoid putting yourself into Hawk just to be able to get an education so that you can get out and get a job? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
You said get out and get a job.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, people who are going to community college, they're able to do that because they also have to have a job as well.
Yeah.
Like I know several people who, there was a community college in Tennessee, Motlow, and a bunch of people I know, like they went to school at Motlow, but then they were able to then have other jobs. Like one of them worked on the Coca-Cola route. And so they were going and delivering Coca-Cola products while still going to school. And it worked out. They were able to get their education, but also have funds coming in because they were out on their own.
Yeah, and I will say I did work most of the time. I'd say 90% of the time I was in community college, and when I transferred, I worked. And it also gave me experience because I did graduate in a marketing degree, and I worked in a car dealership that was all sales. And most of my classes were in sales, so I was able to bring real-life experience into what I know into my classes. I think that really helped me a lot as well. It's very beneficial.
And sometimes you get in that university bubble and you're going to these classes, you're stuck, just all your experiences in a classroom, and your activities are, while they're great, it's, Greek life or football and things like that. And then when you go out into the workforce, you have all this information you've learned, but it's all been classroom material. It hasn't been real world experience. Like I think I said many moons ago on these episodes, I got so frustrated studying for a lot of the licensing exams for our industry because there is a difference between test world and real world.
For sure.
And so much of the things is in any profession, you have to learn different things in order to pass your licensing, pass your certifications, all the different check the boxes. And then you have to learn what you're actually doing and get real world experience. And that's where, sometimes it's putting somebody, you're more responsible because you've been juggling these things. And don't get me wrong, there's tons of people that go to traditional universities 4 years and work as well. So I'm not saying this is just unique to community college.
We can't touch on this topic without touching on the broader idea of exactly what students are gaining from a 4-year education. And the fact that it is a well talked about subject at this point, how so many students are going into debt to go to college and get a degree that ends up ultimately not being helpful for them once they graduate from college, and they end up saddled with a lot of debt and in a job that they didn't even contemplate taking when they were in college.
Yeah.
Versus people that are now pushing, as we are, full disclosure, pushing workforce development as a program, multiple workforce development programs in high schools to get students for whom college is not necessarily the course, to get them the training that they need in high school so that they can graduate from high school and go into the workforce immediately. Well, then you have the community college possibility that can provide you either a path into a 4-year institution, or it can provide you quick training with an associate's degree at the coming very quickly thereafter for a vocation-specific job that you want to do. And that is one advantage of a community college, but there are obviously other advantages of community college as well that we could get into.
Yeah, the pros of community college: lower cost. Cost of tuition and fees are significantly lower than a 4-year university. This can save students a lot of money, especially if they're having to pay out of pocket. Flexible scheduling. Nicole, you talked about you were able to work, and so you were able to really kind of set your schedule. Now, yes, you can also do that in university as well. Smaller class sizes. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I remember I had a biology class, I think, and it was just in this massive lecture hall.
Auditorium, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge classrooms.
Teachers don't know if you're there or not, which some people love because it's like, I can skip. But then if you skip, then your grade's probably going to reflect.
I will say, I think my largest class at Northwest probably had maybe 50 people. The average was probably like 25 to 30.
Oh, wow.
Which was nice because if you needed help with something or you're struggling, it's like you could easily go to the professor and be like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And they would gladly help.
So it's probably a much easier than transition from high school to college with those size classrooms.
Yeah, it was kind of a joke in high school that Northwest, where I went, was called DeSoto County Junior College, just because that's where a lot of people would go in our county. And you saw a lot of those people. It's like, hey, I thought we graduated, but here you are. And it was it's nice to see a familiar face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So transferable credits, obviously, what work you put in at community college, then you can transition that to a university. And so, like, as you said, Cord, it's you go and you either get kind of the teaching you need to have to then move on to the workforce, or you've kind of gotten those mandatory courses out of the way, and then now you're able to then go to a university and get into what you really want to dive into.
Right.
And then career training. Yeah, that's another great thing is, we're obviously working with trying to get this more into high schools, but with the community college aspect of it, they're able to probably bring in more experience.
Right. And I'll go off the transferable credits aspect. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but in this same building where I went to community college they have an Ole Miss DeSoto campus. Apparently, like 90% of the people that go to Northwest, if they're going to go to a 4-year, they're going to go to Ole Miss. So they created Ole Miss Northwest 2+2 program, which is what I did. It's you do 2 years at Northwest, and then you do 2 years at Ole Miss, which is in this same building. So I did not leave this building, and I got my bachelor's degree in marketing, and Ole Miss basically paid for me the whole way through because they want you to go to this DeSoto campus.
Okay.
And I graduated with no student loans, and I'm not paying anything for my college. And I got to graduate in Oxford and walk across the stage. But I did not ever have to go to Oxford to take a class. We did a lot of virtual classes, which were in Oxford, but they basically live streamed it in South Haven. Mm-hmm. So I took classes with Oxford students. I just did not have to be there. My main marketing professor, luckily, she was in South Haven, and I just loved her. She's from Germantown. I think she retired after COVID. But she was amazing, and I think she's like one of the reasons why I have the amount of courage I even have to do this. She's amazing. But, that's just an option. You can get your bachelor's degree without ever have to leaving that building, and a lot of people take advantage of it.
But I mean, you were a student at Ole Miss, so you had all the benefits of being an Ole Miss
student. I mean, I got football tickets. I still have my student ID, which maybe I use sometimes. Nobody has to know that.
Yeah, but you've got that piece of paper.
I could still be a student,
that says you went to Ole Miss. Like you got to.
I was more focused on that. She hit it right up front. I wanted to make sure that she got to go to the games. I mean,
I did get season tickets.
And...
It was a sad football season though when I was in college. No Lane Kiffin. It was during the downfall of Hugh Freeze. So you win some, you lose some.
Shame.
But I mean, that's a huge thing for DeSoto County is that they have brought this to the students there, and that you can not break the bank and still get a 4-year degree.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of in the rare group because, and maybe the younger generation, it's not as much, but do you remember, Court, we at one point talked about how you ask a room full of 50 people what their undergrad degree is and what they actually do, and it is usually not even at all what they're doing.
Yeah. The specific example that I will always bring up is a person that I know very well who graduated with an undergraduate degree in biology and ended up in the finance industry. Now, they have a minor in business, but it was always funny to me that we both were in college together. My major was business, and her major was biology with a minor in business, and she always did better in all of the business classes than I did. And for her it was just a minor, and for me it was my major.
It was just for funsies.
Yeah. My undergrad is organizational communication, so I mean I use that a good bit, I would think, in what we do now. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, "Oh, can you give me advice about getting into the financial world? Like, I'm thinking about going to college." And I'm like, I did not do anything financial in my undergrad. It was not until much later.
That's very interesting. Nicole, much like you, I was sort of drawn to marketing and management. I was very much drawn to sort of the more, I guess, theoretical aspects of the business school. The numbers side of it wasn't really what engaged me the most. But obviously, to get a major in business, I had to take econ, and I had to take accounting and finance and management and marketing. Those were the 5 big ones that you had to cover. You also had to take statistics and calculus and stuff.
I hated statistics.
I hated that class.
Yeah, statistics really is of the devil. It really is a horrible
I don't think
class.
we're allowed to say that anymore in the financial world.
I just said it, and I stand by it. Statistics was golly.
It was awful.
My statistics professor chewed on a unlit cigar during all the classes. He was a big old entrepreneur and just a real cool guy, but he always would chew on a stogie for his lectures.
I could always tell mine was frazzled because he actually taught in Oxford, but he had the Broad Stream to South Haven, Tupelo, and 2 other Ole Miss campuses. So he was in charge of all these students.
Ugh.
And I could always tell him he is just miserable.
Yep.
To finish my point, I guess, was just of all of the things that I thought I might get into after college. I was like, oh, maybe I'll go work at an advertising firm or, something like that, or manage a small company, whatever. 20 years after I graduated from college, I'm at a finance firm, and I also do a lot of work with an accounting firm.
You just do everything.
So ultimately, I ended up with the numbers, even though that wasn't really my focus when I was there.
Yeah, and I will say at the DeSoto campus, they don't offer every single major that you'll find on a normal campus.
So you're talking about Ole Miss, the DeSoto campus.
Yes. So most of us were business majors, elementary education, or social work. Those were the 3 big ones that people would do. Anything outside of that, I think they did general business. I can't remember all of them, but those were the main ones.
Because that also was on the list of cons for a community college. That's the first thing.
The limited degree options.
The limited degree options.
Yeah. Cons, limited degree. Number 2, social life. So social life at community college is not as vibrant as a 4-year university. So this can be a drawback. Or it could be a positive if you are tempted.
I was not a big sorority person. I knew I was never going to do that.
Well, I can tell you that the TV show Community certainly makes it appear that it's quite a social experience if you go to community college, because
I was not friends with Donald Glover or Joel McHale. I did have some older friends, though. So.
The entire premise of the show is based around this group of people who basically meet at the very beginning of their community college careers and form a friend group, a study group, but they become friends very quickly.
And they don't really study.
The majority of the scenes take place in the room where they're supposed to be studying, the library or whatever it is. But they're talking about anything but classes most of the time.
I need to watch that show because that's basically what I did. We had our own Ole Miss lounge in this building that none of the Northwest students could go in.
Yeah.
And I will say that probably 5 of my best friends to this day I met going to that school. So, I mean, it's a con, but, it worked out in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really wanted to go to Ole Miss, but I knew I would get in trouble because of the thriving social life.
So much.
I knew I would be tempted. Okay, the next con on this list is the rates. So
completion rates
for the community college students is lower than a 4-year university. This means that some students may find it difficult to complete their degree at a community college.
I wonder if it's
challenged
so much,
that.
if it's, well, I mean, you can't argue with completion rate. I think the interpretation of what the completion rate means, does it mean that it's harder to finish, or does it just mean that there are more students who go to community college who are less inclined to...
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Well, I know somebody very close to me that went to a community college and was, I think, within 1 or 2 classes of completing and would have had his associates and everything, and got busy, got promotions in work, and just moved on.
I also think it could mean you're not spending tons of money or taking out a lot of student loans. So it's I can drop this and it's not going to I'm not going to waste all that money.
You don't have a vested interest in it. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one too. That's a hard one to look at because I bet there's a ton of people that drop out really quickly in 4-year schools, and then parents have just either keep paying or their kids just move to something else. Or I wonder the study of kids that go to a 4-year, then go to a community college, they come back.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that have started out at Memphis and they're like, it's not for me, so I'm just going to head over to Northwest and see what I can do and go from there. I mean, it's pretty normal, I would think.
So then the last one on this cons list is transferring credits. Well, yeah, we just talked about that as a pro, but not all of them can transfer.
Not all of them have those special programs that are linked with 4 years, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely something you need to look into. But I think that, we didn't talk about on the pros or the cons, the stigma. I know we kind of went down a little rabbit hole on that, but there's nothing at all wrong with community college. If you want to better yourself, if you want to get an education, then do it. And I will tell you, as a person that, I mean, I never knew my road would lead me to where I am doing all kinds of continuing education things that I just, just finished my master's program and I'm already thinking about the next thing I'm going to do. But I think that's when you get into a field you enjoy, the way to keep moving forward. The way this kind of ties into another episode. Like, for instance, like Nicole with you, we had a fear of AI, and even in financial world too, of AI coming and taking marketing jobs, taking financial advisor jobs. And so the way that you and I can keep ourselves tip top is keep educating ourselves. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily we have to go back to community college or we have to go to university, but it may mean that we take a seminar, we may do this, do that. And so unless you want to be Supreme Court Justice or you want to be, a doctor at a certain residency or certain fields like that, there's no point in spending so much money on a community college or university to get your undergrad until you decide really where you're going with it.
Honestly, yeah, I had no idea what I was going to do when I went to college. I was like, I'm just going to go here and start getting my basic classes and see where that goes. And I overheard someone talking about marketing. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's look into that. And luckily, I was able to transfer all my credits to be able to do that. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't choose that route, but I'm glad I did. So I found out a lot about myself and then, of course, making all my friends that I have made.
So one of the things that I did as a parent was I took my experience going through high school and sort of what I felt like was I always knew I was going to go to college. In my household, it was just sort of that was the expectation. You went to high school, you graduated high school, then you went to college. But nobody ever really discussed with me that I recall. I never was committed to a particular school. You've got people that are raised in households where one school is super important and, that's the school they're going to go to no matter what. Then obviously you've got people that are like, man, they're ride or die for an Ivy League or whatever the school is. I didn't have anything like that. And I never had anybody really talk to me about what I should be considering when I selected a school. So I did what any 18-year-old guy with a long-term girlfriend would do, and I just ended up going where my girlfriend was.
Did that work out for you?
It did. It worked out for me.
It doesn't always work out.
It doesn't always work out. Back to what I started by saying, as a parent, I very much focused on, at least with two of my children, I very much focused on giving them the criteria that they should be looking at to decide what sort of school they wanted to go to. I didn't focus with any of them on the next step, and that next step being like, okay, what are you going to study when you get there? Like I was so focused on, okay, pick the right school, find the right school, go to a school that suits you, that I didn't pay any attention to, okay, and this is what you do once you get there. This is how you should, what do you want to do? What do you want to focus on? So on and so forth. So none of my kids, well, with the exception of probably my son, I don't think really any of my kids went into school knowing what they wanted to study and knowing what they wanted to do when they got out of school. And certainly my two daughters went in with, I think, one idea of what they might take and or what they might cover, what they might do when they were done with school. And I think both of their ideas of what they might do once they were done evolved over the course of their education. So, I think you do have to, if you're looking at schools, if you're considering stuff like that, I think you do have to consider where you're going. You have to consider all those financial implications of where you're going. If college of any sort is even the best option for you. I have said before, and I will probably say again, I've always been a big fan of micro works. And of course, he advocates for people to take vocations instead of spending the money to go to school after high school, because that is not necessarily the path for everybody. But you do have to decide, is this my path? Okay, what is going to be the best path for me? How do I choose the school I want to go to? And then also, I think, put some thought into, where is this going to take me? What ultimately is my goal for my career afterwards? How am I going to make a living, earn my money, and live after, say, the age of 22 until I die at 92? You're looking at...
That's kind of sad.
That's a long time.
And I will say, I think community college is also a good option if you don't know that school's the right option for you. I mean, just try it, especially like if you live in one of those 20 states it's free. I mean, what do you have to lose? You can go and you can probably easily decide this is not for me.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to spend a ton of money doing it.
And I know we harped on this before, but, some of the greatest people have gone to just community colleges and been very successful. Steve Jobs went to a community college.
Legend.
Look at what all Steve Jobs has done. Tom Hanks, we talked about him earlier. He went to a community college in order to then get to the path he needed to then study theater and get to where he is today. And so you don't look at it as, oh, I'm not going to Ole Miss or Mississippi State or wherever it may be. You look at it as, this is the path that I need to take to have my ultimate success in life. And the other thing we didn't really talk about was that community college has a much more inviting environment when it comes to someone older wanting to go to school. Like that maybe they had a situation with family or something where they couldn't go to college right away, or they couldn't do something, or they're just, they want to go back to school and finish. Going to community college has less of a stigma, I guess, towards it than, hey, you're sitting at Ole Miss campus and you've got a 40-year-old sitting next to a 20-year-old.
I can't speak to what it feels like to go to undergraduate or go to community college as an older person, but I did go to law school as an older person, and I sat next to a bunch of people who, I was in my 30s with 3 kids, and I was sitting with a bunch of people who were 22, 23 years old, just out of undergraduate and going straight into law school. And I felt old. So if community college is an option for people older and who want to go back and get some education and not feel out of place, then I think that's great, because I certainly felt out of place and I would like to avoid that. But also, these cons, and Nicole, please chime in on this and correct me. One of the cons on this list is there are limited degree options, but one of my big interest areas in terms of community college has always been some of the variety of classes that they offer that I'm like, I'd like to go take that class. Seems like there are a lot of interesting classes that you could possibly take, even if you don't necessarily have a lot of degree options. It seems like there are a lot of good classes.
Yeah, I can't remember all of the class options. It's been a while since I looked at the list, but I'm sure there are. I mean, Northwest had a lot of degree options. They had a huge nursing school that I know a lot of people went to and would get their degree. I want to say they had something like some technical, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but when I was there, it was mostly people going for education in business. Social work was a huge one. Accounting, because Ole Miss has a pretty highly ranked accounting school. A lot of my friends were accounting degrees. But yeah, I'm sure there were some options that were there, that were available, that were pretty cool. Probably more on the big campus, on the main campus, than what I experienced in South Haven.
Well, I guess I will just point out to anybody who's listening that I have had the opportunity several times to set up trusts for clients for education, specifically for the education of their heirs. And one of the things that I have found interesting over the years that I've set those sorts of trusts up is what seems to be a changing attitude in a lot of the people as far as what they are willing to consider education for the purposes of receiving benefits from the trusts that we're setting up. The first couple I did, it was 4-year education. I think the first one I ever did, the client had me put in a stipulation that it had to be a 4-year degree from a college that had a real campus and real buildings. It could not be an online college and so on and so forth. So there was really this attitude like, it must be a 4-year degree. It must be from a state or a private institution, blah, blah, blah. It cannot be like a Phoenix University or whatnot. And over the years, most people's attitudes toward that kind of education has evolved, at least in my experience. And now I see a whole lot more people that are willing to say, the trust that I'm setting up will pay for community college. It will pay for an online education at an online institution. It will pay for vocational school. So to the extent that, Katie, as you mentioned, that there might have ever been some sort of stigma attached to certain types of school or certain kinds of schools, I hope and I think that stigma might be going away, that attitudes might be shifting towards a more openly accepting idea of what different people need to accomplish their different goals. Certainly, I think we can all, Nicole, I'm not going to make you chime in on this, but Katie, I think you and I both can say that, like, if we had been reviewing resumes and had tossed Nicole's resume because, she went to a community college for 2 years, we can't look at her, she's not an acceptable candidate. We would have absolutely 100% lost out on a great find. So
I'm smiling over here.
Yeah, you have to.
You can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, there are so many different options for the way people complete their life goals nowadays that I think you have to be open to all of them and be willing to try and find that diamond.
I just completed my master's for personal financial planning. I could have gone and done it through an Alabama, really any kind of college, but then it would have been, the price would have tripled probably. So I chose to do it through kind of a very reputable organization, get that done, have the designations, have the education behind it all. So I've got my master's completed, but it wasn't a good financial decision just to be able to say, I graduated from Alabama with my master's in personal financial planning. Like, no.
And that's something that nobody can take away from you, is that designation and that your degree. You should be proud of it regardless, no matter where it came from.
Okay, are y'all ready to bullseye this?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Let's bullseye it up.
Nicole?
I'm the first bullseye.
You're the first
bullseye.
No pressure. I definitely agree that there has been a stigma in community college. It was like that when I first started. However, I think it's gotten better over the years. I'm proud that I went to community college because it ultimately led me to this path that I'm on now. So I would definitely look into it. Mississippi has like 15 community colleges in the state. I think the most of any state in the country. The option's there. Just check it out and see if they have the degree option that you're interested in, and don't knock it till you try it, because it worked in my favor, and I think it's a great option across the board for anyone.
Bullseye! Sorry, that might have been loud.
Okay, my bullseye is absolutely ditto to what Nicole said. But no, seriously, think about the pros and cons. Really take a second to not knock it till you try it. Look at it and see that it could be very beneficial. It could be great for you. It could be great for your kid. But there's so many pros that I really think outweigh the cons. And again, I think the wind is changing with the stigmas. Bullseye.
Well, I think y'all have covered it all. And as usual, I will be the cop-out and not give a bullseye.
Can I ask both of you a fun question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there one class that you still have nightmares about that you took in college?
Nightmares.
Because I have one.
What was your nightmare class?
So when I was at Ole Miss, I had to take a business strategy class, and my professor was the head of business at Ole Miss, period. Not just South Haven, but the whole campus.
Mm-hmm.
And he scared me to death. And I can't even tell you. I mean, I learned a lot, but I can't tell you what exactly gives me nightmares, but I still have nightmares about that class. You had to, like, rate yourself at the end of each class, like, on how you participated, if you answered enough questions. If you were wrong, he'd just say no and then just walk off. And it's like, I don't know. That one gives me nightmares. I just didn't know if anybody else experienced this, or am I just weird?
Statistics.
Yeah.
If we are speaking literally here, there are no classes that I still have actual nightmares about. There are classes that I look back on unfondly. Econ 101, I really did not do well in that class. And I actually took it again and did far better the second time around I took it. But that was a terrible class for me the first time I took it. And statistics was a horrible class for me the only time I took it. But I also had classes in law school that were highly, highly stressful.
I always hear torts.
No, torts didn't bug me.
Okay.
Contracts didn't bug me. Crim law, all those first year classes were not really troublesome to me, except for legal methods, which is basically the class where they teach you how to write like a lawyer. That one stressed me the heck out, and
I'm stressed just listening to
Yeah.
that.
It was that was a tough class, especially because I'm not super inclined to writing. It's not something that I just love to do. So that was a tough class, but none of them that I can remember anyway. None of them give me nightmares.
I have several that were like random things that I still remember today. Like I had a management, I think it was a conflict management class that I took, and we were talking about if an accident happens and the power of how the story changes, and like somebody describing like, oh, I heard a gunshot. And then somebody else heard that. So then their entire story changed. It just really stuck with me on how trying to get people to explain what they saw, what they heard, and how to really weed out what is manipulated from other people and what not. I do have 2 classes I wish I could go back to again because they were awesome. It was a political propaganda class that was all like back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, those old advertisements, and really like breaking those down and analyzing those. I loved that class. And then I did a movie theory class that was all about different relationships, communication, conflict management, and taking different movies and like analyzing them into how you could like take it into the world.
Can you imagine that political class if it was taught based on today's?
Oh, gosh. I'm sure that class is probably current now.
If I could go back, actually, Cameron sent me this article that there is a class on Taylor Swift at Arizona State.
Can you audit it?
I could teach that class. So you weren't going to leave this episode without me mentioning Taylor Swift.
There it is.
I never go out of style.
Oh.
I had to do it. Sorry, Court.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing bell just in time. If you have made it to the end of yet another episode of the Bullcast Podcast, if you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Court, Katie, or Cameron, you can go to our website. That's bullcastpodcast.com. Unfortunately, we don't have a bio for Nicole on there.
Not yet. It's going to come.
But you can go to that website, leave a comment, suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk about, or actually, I think you can even listen to episodes there if you want to. If you'd like to see some pictures or talk to us on X, then we have handles for Instagram and X. Those are both at Bullcast Podcast. We also have a Facebook page that is Bullcast the Podcast on Facebook. And then finally, somewhere where you could go and find out more about Nicole if you're so inclined, and find out more about the rest of us on this podcast and what we do. We've mentioned before we work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd want to find out more about any of us on this podcast or our team or our boss, David Pickler, then feel free to go to that website. That is picklerwealthadvisors.com. That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have given you everything that you need to go forth and pick out your favorite community college.
Apply to a community college.
Go Rangers.
So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Nicole.
And we're done.
Woo.